We will now explore how to find chapters 456 and 491 in the Florida statutes. Note here there's a stepwise progression to get to the information we are seeking. First, you will go to the statutes website, click on Statutes in the next screen and title page, and then find Title 32, Regulations of Professions. When that opens up, you will find a number of numeric chapters listed. Our concern for today is chapter 456 and 491. This is a screenshot of the site for the Florida statutes. The three-step process to find Florida statutes 456 and 491 is as follows. When you log into the site, the Florida statute site, you will find this page listing of the Florida statutes. You'll want to go to 32, Title 32, and click on it. That will then open up a number of chapters that are listed in kind of a menu. In this case, we would want to click on 456 and then 491 to look at of the Florida statutes. And you'll notice you can indicate different years. However, we're going to stay with 2019. And this is the three-step process to find Florida statutes out of the five-step process we discussed in regard to the third objective of the CE is to be able to describe five basic steps to obtain specific updates in the Florida statutes and Florida Administrative Code. So the first step when you arrive at this landing page is to find Title 32, which is Regulation of Professions and Occupations. And as we look at the various chapters here, we will first go to 456. And what we'll look for is 456.47. Since this is a recent change in terms of telemedicine, it will be at the bottom of the listing here, 456.47, and it talks about the use of telehealth to provide services. Now, this is the abbreviated version that looks at the definitions of telehealth and telehealth provider, the practice standards, and the record keeping and out-of-state telehealth provider information. Now, if you wanted to look at the complete chapter of 456.47, you would go here. It says View Entire Chapter, and you'll notice that it has a much longer explanation from the time that it was developed to the present time. So there's greater detail if you need to find out information that isn't on the a brief example that we looked at first. Then we will also look for 491, which was what we had talked about earlier. And so going down the list here, we want to go to 491. And 491.012, we talked about one of the changes had to do with the code regarding violations and penalties and injunctions. It is unlawful in a violation of this chapter for a person to use the following titles or any combination thereof unless she or he holds a valid active license as a clinical social worker, marriage and family therapist, or licensed mental health counselor. So it talks about penalties for using the titles without being licensed. And it suggests at the end here that it is indeed a misdemeanor of the first degree. And it goes into what the punishable information is in the chapters you would look for. If you wanted to see an entire view of this chapter, you will notice that it begins to list a number of subsections. Of course, 491 0.12 here would probably be quite a bit larger than what we were looking at on the front, 491. you notice that these don't appear to be, here's the 0, 1, 2, again, the information about misuse of licensure titles as an example, and it has a more extended definition. Then we will also look at 491.0149. This section gives information on how to display the license and the use of professional titles on promotional information. So here it says spelling out the title licensed clinical social worker or licensed marriage and family therapist or licensed mental health counselor and the letters that go with that. So LCSW, LMFT, and LMHC as an example. And then it talks about how to list your registered clinical social worker intern status. And in this case, it suggests, from what we can see here, that you spell it out each time and not use the RCSWI letters. At least in 2019, that was the direction of the board in regard to this particular question. So again, when doing this, the 3 steps are go to uh, the title 32. This is step 1. Then step 2 is to go to the chapter, and then the subpart of the chapter that you wish to examine. And here it would be, we did telehealth 456.47. We will now review how to search on the Florida Administrative Code. The example we'll use is the application for licensure for clinical social work, marriage and family therapy, and mental health counseling applicants, 64B4 3.001. So the first thing you would do is go to the floridarules.org page, and then you will type in 64B4 is what I did. And then when you get there, you will click on the Word document and it will give the information about where it has drawn from the authority and the statutes, which would be 491.045. It also provides information where to access the application and some housekeeping information, such as having to include fees with the application, and it also explores licensure by endorsement. So we'll walk through here what we were talking about. You'll go to the floridarules.org and it'll bring up a screen that includes this search engine. In this case, I typed 64B4 and it brought me into a page that listed a number of things associated with 64B4. In our case, we wanted to look at the application for licensure, which would be 3.001. So when we get there, we want to click on the Word document, and the Word document will then reveal the description that involves the rule. And here we find what we were talking about. It gives you where to get the application form. And then it talks about application for licensure by exam will be accompanied with the application fee and initial active status license fee. People who are uh, seeking licensure. Then it'll talk about endorsement as well for those who are seeking endorsement of their license. Also, I want to point to the rule-making authority we talked about from, in this case, Statute 491.0045. The statute describes what is needed, and then the administrative code outlines in detail what the rules would be to implement the statute.